Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online, and I'm getting the feeling that we are in the quiet period before the storm. I did watch the O7 show, not live, actually forgot about it, and so I watched it back on YouTube. It was pretty interesting, a lot about the Discovery project, but of course at the end there, the new capital mechanics with the new fighter mechanics on the carriers and the Doomsday, which unfortunately didn't show up. But yeah, CCP is working hard, and CCP Larrikin even said that they're hoping to get that stuff on the test server pretty soon so that we can have our fun with it and give them actual feedback on how all of those mechanics work. So it looks really promising, and CCP is working very hard to get the expansion out. So yeah, let's hope that they can get it all on the test server very soon so that we can cover it and see if there are any real big mistakes or problems with it, and then of course try and make Citadel a pretty cool expansion together. But we are here for the market, so let's jump in here. As always, we'll start with plex, and that means I need to get the right tab, 120. And let's take a look here. So as I was writing down the prices, plex were at 1183. 1.183 billion, but I'll just say 1183, and as you can see we're still going down. We're hesitating a little bit, we're staying below the 1.2 billion mark, but we are still slowly going down. There's still some pressure on plexes, but there's also quite a bit of buying happening apparently, because everything below 1186 pretty much has just been bought out in like the 5 minutes it usually takes me to get ready for starting EVE Talk. The buyers are at 1172. That means a 14 million margin between the buyers and the sellers at these prices. This is probably a pretty narrow margin. I would expect it to be closer to 15-16 million normally. So I think we're starting to see the first bit of pressure for plex to start to go back up at this point, trying to form a bottom right here just above 11.85, something like that. But here comes it's an extremely active market. Here comes someone that's dumping them at 11.80, so those will probably get sold pretty quickly. But yeah, very active market at the moment, and it's pretty interesting to see that plex is actually, well, affordable. It's way above 1 billion, so from that perspective it's not very affordable, but it is down a little bit, and there still seems to be a slight pressure on plexes at the moment. Volumes are normalizing though. We're coming back in line with what it was before the skill trading spike, so pretty soon normal market mechanics should start to take over. And my personal expectation on that, I say this pretty much every week, is that the Citadel hype will actually start increasing the price of plex maybe into a little bit of a bubble as well, and that's what I'm looking out for, to actually try and take a profit on the plexes that I have bought. Multiple pilot training certificate, you can see that that's very much in line with the plexes, dipped very close to 1.15 billion, jumped back up here, but again we do see some downward pressure. And let's see here, 1.2 billion for the sellers, 1132 for the buyers, so that's a much wider margin here. It is a much smaller market as well, if you look at the volumes here. So potentially you could make a little bit of money just on active trading here, although it is, well, yeah, actually not that bad compared to the 13-14 million margin that you have for plex. This is definitely something quite different, but as I've said, with the lower volumes it's going to be quite a bit more tricky to actually do them. But with this volatility it's not bad if you can maybe pick a few training certificates at let's say 1150, something like that. Plex would then shoot up back above 1.2 billion. The multiple pilot training certificate will have to follow suit, and that's when you could get some interesting stuff here. So I see a slight opportunity in these multiple pilot training certificates for the people that are willing to risk it, and that, like me, believe that plex are set to go back up in price. Body resculpt, 252 million for the sellers, 241 for the buyers. And if you look at the chart, that one's actually taking off. So that one actually increased in price in the last few weeks here, which is pretty interesting. Oh, and I'm actually working on a 1-year chart. Maybe I'll go for a 6-month chart just to get a bit more in detail on this. Yeah, pilot's body resculpt in the last 3 weeks or so did increase in price, which is maybe a first indication that the increased demand for Aurum will have its impact as well on everything here. Skill extractors next. Of course, it's still a little bit too early to say much about this chart, but they are selling at 275 million, pretty much 276, and the buyers are at 271. So that margin is completely narrowing down here to almost nothing. People are basically extracting the price of these skill extractors from what it costs in Aurum, and that is bound to stay decently stable at that point, because why would you buy a plex, then divide that into skill extractors, into Aurum, into skill extractors, and then make a loss on that? So that is going to be very closely tied, I think, to the plex market. But then the skill injectors are now going for 640 million, 627 for the buyers. So that's a bit more of a margin here. And this could, of course, change in price depending on the availability of skill points from possibly farming characters that are now just sitting in a station with the best possible implants in their heads, just churning out skill points for people to put in these extractors and just sell them to the market. It is probably a business that some people do if they think it's economical, but that could put some pressure on the price. But of course, demand could still stay pretty damn high for these skill injectors as well. As new people come into the game, they would love to have a few million extra skill points to play around with, to get into the frigate that they want, the tech to weapon system that they want, whatever it is. That it is a very interesting item. So keeping an eye on this one, I think it could live its own life compared to plexes and the extractors themselves. So that's going to be, I think, interesting in like a few months when we actually get a decent chart, when we can see some historical perspective and things like that. So yeah, that's it for the plex related stuff. Let's move on to some minerals, 710. And let's start as always with the tritanium chart, which is a little bit under pressure. So tritanium was the only one that still seemed hopeful to me to maybe increase in price or stay at a high point for 6 months, but we're clearly going down to 6.10 and we're just staying around that price point. So sellers at 611, buyers at 610. At least that's one buy order at 610, could be that 604, but it's still a very, very small margin here. Looks like tritanium just wants to stay in the vicinity of the 6.10 price mark, and that's what it's going to do for now. If you look at the supply demand numbers, a billion units being bought here, then here we have 600 million, 200 million, something like that. On the buyers, you've got 450 million, 500 million, 500 million. Here we've got another 1.5 billion in a few orders, although two of them are a bit older. So maybe a slight edge to supply, still a little bit of a threat for tritanium to go lower. If that starts to happen, if the buyers can bring plex below 6 ISK, then bring tritanium below 6 ISK, then we could see lower prices due to the supply that is available here, because another sell order of 1.2 billion, less than a day old. There is more supply than demand for sure. At the moment, plex is maintaining a price of around 6.10. But there is a little bit of a threat from the supply here. Next up, we've got pyrite, which did definitely drop up to down to 10.8 ISK, but it showed a little bit of strength here, going back to 11.10, and we are currently selling at 11 ISK, buying at 10.97. So really no margin here once again. Pyrite seemingly finding its price at 11 ISK. Is it possible that citadels and everything have been calculated in the price by now, and that we're actually finding a price range for the minerals in the foreseeable future? That is definitely possible, I think. So 11 ISK for pyrite, 6.10 for tritanium. Let's see what Mexalon is doing. Oh, that's interesting and unexpected for me. We've seen Mexalon slowly drop in price over the last 4 months or so. And at the tail end here, just a few weeks ago, a bit more volatility starting to show up. We were playing below 60 ISK, which was a little bit unusual, but we're taking back off above 60 ISK once again. 61.27 for the sellers, 60.33 for the buyers. The buyers had to follow suit, so I guess that supply was not coming in anymore at a price below 60 ISK, forcing the buyers once again to increase their biddings, and we get this the result that Mixon actually pushed back a little bit. But I again do get a feeling that Mixon is trying to find a price range in which to stay stable in the foreseeable future for now. Probably just above 60 ISK, but maybe try a trade range of 58 to 62 ISK is definitely in the books as well, just around 60 ISK right here. I think it's possible, and it is the third mineral that is not clearly moving in a direction once again because of the bit of the pullback here for pyrite and then titanium, which seem to be staying at a 6-month high for a long time. Now it actually dropped back a little bit, so all of them are seeing a bit more volatility, just some market forces pushing the price up a little bit, down a little bit, just basically finding a trade range. Next up, we've got Isogen right here. Yeah, very similar. Found a bottom at around 100 ISK, tried to break that, wasn't successful, is playing with it again, but the sellers are staying above 100 ISK, the buyers just below that, which gives room for a bit of volatility on both sides, depending on the supply that comes in, the demand that comes in, and thus, yeah, Isogen finding a trade range of around 100 ISK. Pretty interesting to see all the high-SIC minerals in a similar pattern, but not a clear one. So that's the way I would read this. Next up here we've got Noxium, still pretty volatile, but very low as well. So showing a little bit of instability, probably big investors trying to pick up some cheap Noxium just in case it does take off like medium to long term. It is possible. And of course, if you can buy them at 460, that is extremely low for Noxium. And here someone else must have bought at 465, increasing the price once again. Sellers 472, buyers 467. Something like that, pretty narrow margin, but yeah, I do think that there is still a lot of pressure on Noxium. Let's take a quick look at the supply here. Not that much, honestly. We're not seeing a lot of new orders, so I guess someone came in, bought everything below a certain price, caused the increase in price here. We'll have to see if supply keeps coming in now that the price is back up above 470 ISK, and if it does, then we'll probably start to go back down once again, providing a new opportunity for a bigger player to make a big move on the Noxium market, a big buyout, which I think is happening right here. So we keep going down, then all of a sudden we go up sharply, we go back down sharply again, up to a very low bottom at 460, up again, down again to 465, and up again. So this is just we are still in an oversupply situation, but Noxium doesn't really want to go below 460, 465, something like that. People do recognize that as a good investment opportunity for the longer term. Then next up we've got Zydrine, which is well, clearly shooting back up here with a bottom of almost 900 ISK. We are now trading Zydrine for 1350 for the sellers, 1327 for the buyers. So the 900 bottom was a clear opportunity to buy. I completely missed it because of, well, I guess you could say that the strong forces that kept working in the same direction for a very long time. So here obviously you can see almost a year ago we had the mineral rebalance, which increased the price drastically, but then over more than a month, almost 2 months, prices did continuously increase up to 1600 ISK, and at that point we had 1, 2, almost 3 months of pressure on Zydrine going down to 900 ISK, and now all of a sudden we're shooting back up to 1400 ISK almost on the chart. So that is a very difficult thing to time, to actually make some real money on. But yeah, if you did buy for around 900 ISK, obviously you did a very good deal here, because at the moment Zydrine is trading quite a bit higher, and the winner in the ticker below is obviously Megasite, which is now trading at 1360 for the sellers, 1330 for the buyers. So once again, Megasite caught up to Zydrine, and that means that it shot up quite nicely in the last week, more than 10%, 11.20%. That's definitely not bad, and you could have bought Megasite close to 1000 ISK, which now is like, well, 35% increase in price. Not bad at all in 2 months, but it was tricky for me personally to actually spot that one. What is possible? Obviously, this decrease in price must have meant an oversupply situation of this nullsec mineral. So too much stability, too much mining happening in nullsec, and there is some disruption with Pandemic Horde invading Space Monkey Alliance. That could just be enough disruption in nullsec to cause this increase in price here all of a sudden. So it could also be a big manipulation by major alliances, that's possible, but the volatility that's happening there in nullsec could actually also explain this increase in price here a little bit, causing a decrease in supply. People wanting to keep their stocks, not risking major transportation operations with just billions and billions of units, things like that. It could have the impact that we're seeing right here. So pretty interesting. The high-sec minerals trying to find a trade range. Noxium still at a bottom price, but pretty volatile, probably due to investors, and then the nullsec minerals shooting up quite drastically, and possibly due to some nullsec instability, which in my book would be absolutely awesome. Next up, Take One chips at 16 minutes. Let's take a look at some of these, if there's anything to spot. So the Armageddon took a little bit of a dive, but it's already back up to 212 million on the chart, and we are selling them for 217, buying them for 208, but we are slowly starting to see some more Armageddons coming to the market. Here we've got some decently big sell orders when it comes to the volumes, but also less than a day old, couple more Armageddons coming in, trying to sell them just below the 217 million mark, trying to get in on some of the Armageddon money. Not bad. It is an expensive battleship to produce, but starting to see some production coming here. It's been a long time. If all of the others are starting to see well-seeded markets, we could finally come into a more stable period for the Take One chips. Let's see what the Caracal's doing. The Caracal did shoot up last week quite significantly, but it's already on its way down. Let's see what the supply is telling us. Half a page almost of new supply, but with decent numbers: 73, 29, 10, 25, another 70 coming in as the latest order. That's not too bad, and you do still have some Caracals on the market, some sell orders with some volume remaining below 12 million ISK, which should hopefully help this price to continue to go down just a little bit and then start to stabilize. Let's hope that it happens. At least for me, a stable Take One market is not bad. Next up here we've got the Dominics. After some volatility around January with high prices up to 210, we're currently trading in the 195 to 200 million range, and we may just be sticking around there if there's enough Dominicses. And surprisingly enough, look at that, more than half a front page of new Dominicses coming in, and here we got 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and someone is bringing in 36 Dominicses and another 36 right here. That can't be a coincidence considering the timings here. Someone is bringing quite a few Dominicses on the market despite the downward pressure already, which should just help with the Dominicses not shooting up all of a sudden all too drastically. It's been a long time since we actually had a decent amount of Dominicses on the market like this. Next up here we've got the Drake. This is pretty interesting. We do see some volatility. One thing to keep in mind, we're talking about spikes that are roughly from 53 million to 57 million. That's less than 10%. That's not really huge. But what we saw here is a price spike up to 57 million, and then for the first time a bit of an overreaction on the supply front, breaking 53 million on the downtrend. And what I'm guessing that happened here is someone saw, okay, we can actually buy Drakes below 53 million. Let's just buy a lot of them. Let's make a fleet, because you can see here 2 days with bigger volumes, way above the average. That's probably around 100 to 110 Drakes. Here we've got 2 days of at least 150, 160 Drakes. So a bit of a buyout happening here. Again, increasing the price. Let's see if there is a response from builders, from the industry, and yes, there is. They're selling at around 56 already, 54 for the buyers, and almost a full front page of new Drakes coming in. And if we go for the 88 days, we also have a few bigger orders. So let's hope that they can decrease the price here once again. But it's good to see the response and the fact that a bit of an overreaction may have looked like a good buy opportunity to a bigger party here all of a sudden caused a lovely double spike, but still keep that in mind, less than 10%, so it's not that huge. Next up, we've got the Mauler. It was doing well to stay stable at around 11 million, but I do think I noticed this one as a potential for being bought out and having an increase in price last week, and that's what happened. We're completely empty, so someone probably made a move on everything below 14 million-ish, and then just is now slowly or bring a few back, but the volumes available for the Maulers was not that big. It's going to be really interesting to see if the industry notices this gap, notices this increase in price, and actually comes with a lot of Mauler production. If these gaps get filled very substantially next week with a full page of new Maulers, then that would be a sign that the Tech 1 industry is becoming alive once again and is starting to be able to keep up with the losses, the demand. That's happening as well. The Myrmidon, very similar situation to the Drake, where we had an increase in price to 57 million, but then an over response from the production and clearly a breaking of the trend on the way down, which again looked like a good buy opportunity. It probably was as well, and now we have a bit of a counter response here with the Myrmidon shooting up, currently selling at 55.5 million, the buyers at 51. So that's around here on the chart. Buyers are around here. Whoops, all right, we have 1 hour left. Around here on the chart, again, a bit of a volume increase. You can see that here over a few days, an increase in price, probably because people saw Myrmidons actually selling close to 52 million right here, and thus the increase here, but it's not too drastic. It's also not like we're talking more than 10% or anything like that, and volumes available quite all right, and we're starting to see another 9 Myrmidons coming in here, which will hopefully be able to keep this price from really shooting up too drastically. Next up, we've got the Oracle, again breaking below 80 million, and now we do have a bit of a response. People say, okay, that's not looking too bad to build up an Oracle fleet, so they bought them all, everything below 88 million, and now we have a few more starting to come in. So some volatility, but interestingly enough, on Tech 1 ships that had broken the averages on the downside. So that is pretty interesting to me. Next up here, we've got the Raven showing some volatility, but it's only from 186 million to 196 million. So that's around 5%, which is really not that drastic. The average is around 190. So again, a spike up, slight spike up, followed now by some correcting that is starting. So people are actually bringing a decent amount of Ravens right here. If we have those 20 and then several more sell orders coming in here, competing with one another, going down to 194 million, that is obviously going to put some pressure on the chart here to go lower again. So some volatility, but not too drastic. Here we've got the Stabber, which was slowly going down, actually broke 11 million for a few weeks here and shot back up. So people are making moves on some of those cheaper ships that do break the mold. And what probably happened here, if we go for the 89, I guess that basically the Stabber market may have just been bought out and is now only being relisted starting at 16.3, but some are selling at 15 million already, which is quite a bit higher. So someone just basically bought out the Mauler market, the Stabber market. That's the big volume spike you're seeing here, and now the relisting is starting quite a bit higher, but the volumes here not bad, 89, 98, 15, 25. The dropping from 16.3 to 15 million is not bad either. We'll see if there's enough production potential here. If you can bring Stabbers to the market, you're probably gonna make a decent amount of money on those, and we'll see how quickly this gap gets filled and how quickly we once again have a browsable tab of sellers for the Stabber. Interesting situation. But this is pretty obvious that someone just bought everything right here on this volume spike. And what is really strange is that here we have a similar volume spike, but not the price response that we would normally expect. So maybe he released too quickly within 24 hours or something like that. But yeah, this is obviously what happened right here for the stabber. And the next few weeks could be really interesting, considering that the stabber can probably be filled for a really nice profit if you can make them, and the mauler as well. So that's going to be interesting. Next up, we've got the tornado, very high up in price as well, 88 million for the sellers, which is right around here. So something similar may have happened, but we're not seeing such a huge volume spike. I just don't think there were that many tornadoes left on the market, except for a few. Well, I wouldn't call this a scam, but just opportunistic sell orders at 860 million. The buyers though are at 73 million, which is right here on the chart. So if they don't budge, then this should come back down quite drastically, quite rapidly, but it is yet another ship that needs to be produced, brought back to the market. So it's interesting to see that it is happening. Next up here we get Typhoon, pretty decent double spike from, let's say, 180 to 200 million. That is starting to get close to 10%. It is within that range, so it's not 10% yet. But again, we are going back down here. Do we have a lot of Typhoons on the market? Yes, we still have 22 right here, pretty big sell order coming in. So we could actually get into the same situation as the Drake and the Myrmidon 1 to 2 weeks ago, where too much production on this spike of the Typhoon is actually going to break the average price of 180 million. If that happens, it's going to be interesting to see if volatility comes back, because someone decides, okay, I'm actually going to buy a lot of Typhoons and try to relist them at a higher price. And then next up we've got the Vexor, with also a very stable period of several months here, trading just below the 12 million range. Then something happened right here to increase the price up to 14 million on the chart, but you can see the response right here, the decrease in price. The big volume spike here is worrying though. Let's see how many sellers there are left. That is pretty damn good. All of this is less than a day old, and we still have 209, 128, 25 of them coming in here. This is going to get squashed quite drastically. The sellers are already going for close to 12 million and still big volumes. The question is, will they break like 11.5 million on the chart at some point? Will there be an over response due to the really big volumes here? That is going to, I think, be the interesting part on the VIX. Or is this starting to happen once again in the Tech 1 market? So yeah, interesting situation. I can clearly see a few opportunities for people that have stabber, mauler blueprints, possibly also for the tornado blueprints as well, and the oracles. You can probably make some and sell them at a decent margin compared to the cost of actually building them at the moment. Interesting stuff. Next up, Tech 2 markets, 2740. Let's take a look at this. The Basilisk, interesting. Last week I said I think the buy orders were close to 185 and maybe for the longer term. And here is the spike already. So price back up to 226 for the sellers, 210 for the buyers. If you bought like last week below 190 million, you're already making 35 million on that trade, which is way more than 10%. That's definitely not bad. Awesome volatility. There was actually a Basilisk opportunity 1 to 2 weeks ago, buying them below 190 million. Very, very interesting. Unexpected for me. I would have expected it to need to drop way lower, but to see this volatility here, this was yet again an opportunity to make some real money on some of these Basilisk trades. Interesting. Volumes wise, we're talking 50, 60 Basilisks. So if you can be in on a few of those trades, not too bad. Next up here, we've got the Cerberus, which went up to 215 million last week or 2 weeks ago. So we're really at a 6-month high. It's finally going back down, but yeah, with a bottom visible on the chart of 175, we probably have quite a ways to go. Yeah, 193 for the buyers, 202 million for the sellers. It's just too early at the moment. So you had a great sell opportunity right here. You can still sell them if you bought at the bottom, but if not, if you're looking for a trade opportunity, either way, the Cerberus is probably not the ship to look at. It's going to probably correct back, and it's waiting for another investment opportunity. Next up here, we got the Guardian. Really interesting that this one in lockstep keeps going higher and higher. It's currently trading at around 150 million. I'm guessing that logistics could be important at the moment in some fleets for some reason. And thus they are actually trading at a decent price with decent volumes available on the market. So yeah, we just need to wait. I think unless you can still sell these at a good profit, it's a good time to do so. But I think we just have to wait for this to actually calm down a little bit, drop back down, and 130 is obviously a bottom that I personally am looking out for to make some money on the Guardians. Next up here, we've got the Hound. Again, lovely show of volatility here. Went up to 27 million when you could have bought him for 17 million. That was just incredible. Dropped back down to 20 million and is now already trading back at 26 million, 22 for the buyers. So this is really something that you can make quite a bit of money on if you pull the trigger on your investments at the right time. Next up here, we got the Ishtar. Also, just early February, worked its way to 200 million, a high for 6 months, on its way back down to 180. Again, I would say it's too early to say you can actually buy this, but considering all the volatility we're seeing, it is very tricky to time this market at the moment. So the correction, well, not bad, from 200 million down to 180. That's a 10% correction. We're also going back up just a little bit right here. So maybe, but very risky in my book. Next up, we've got the Manticore. Again, definitely not bad. Look at this. This is just in the last 2.5 months or so. You could have bought them at 21, sold them at 27, bought again at 21, sold them at 27, and then even 31 million. And now we're going back down, and the buyers are at 22 million, sellers at 24. Is this a buy opportunity? If you expect even more volatility, possibly. Pretty big volumes to go through here though, but yeah, this is where money is made and lost, to be honest, and that's not bad, right? Buying at 21, selling at 30 million, that is definitely not bad. 50% profit right here, and that is in just a few weeks. That's just pretty crazy. Next up here, we've got the Nemesis. Again, really awesome buy opportunity below 17 million. You can't really buy stealth bombers below that price very often. And then we have well, not exactly a big spike, but up to 24 million. It worked its way up there. I think you could have been patient here, just wait to see where are we going. Okay, pull the trigger at 23, 22, whatever you wanted. Then we pulled back a little bit, and then we had another opportunity at 26 million, and now we're finally pulling back a little bit once again. So again, big volumes, big opportunities to make money here if you spotted that bottom at 17 million, which is of course why you should watch Eve Talk every single week. Next up, we've got the Oneros here. Pretty interesting again that it seems to be triggering at 160. Obviously, I would prefer to see bottoms at 145. You know, that's obviously where you can buy Oneros pretty cheap, 140 to 145. But all the volatility at the moment is just not allowing these bottoms to come into play. And so we went from 175 down to 160, which is around 10%. And now we're empty of Oneros, so you can obviously sell them at like 185, 180, probably pretty easily, which again would have meant a decent amount of money made. The volatility, it's still right here. Amazing. Next up here, we get the Purifier trading at a pretty high range. So I'd be very careful, but again, it does show the opportunities here. You could have bought them below 17 million, sold them at 22, sold them at 24, 2 opportunities right here, not bad, and we may be working on another high price. Yeah, still selling at 23.5 million. Not bad if you spotted the bottom here. Once again, look at the volumes, pretty damn high, a lot being traded at the moment, so you're too late to buy, of course, but again, showing the potential of the Tech 2 market. Scimitar going to a 6-month high of 160 million. It's also you can clearly see that this is like the third spike, 155, 160, 160 in 6 months. That's not bad, but what's really good is of course this bottom where we bought close to 120 million for scimitars, and they are now selling for 165 easy. 45 million profit on every scimitar you actually managed to pick up here at a cheap price. That's just, yeah, amazing. And you even had one trade opportunity here from 120 to 145, let's say 140. That's more than 10%. And then here you had a second opportunity from 135 to 160 million, another 35 million, and a pretty good opportunity as well, showing the volatility, the potential to actively trade in the Tech 2 market. It's great to see it alive after we'd seen a lot of stability before this. It was very hard to actually find the opportunities, but now they're just all over the place. Here's the Vengeance then. Again, not that good for active trading because it is so slow. I don't really like the assault frigates too much myself. Not enough volumes, not enough real spiky behavior. I mean, there's one right here in the last 6 months, but this, yeah, you had a good bottom at 19 million, which you could have spotted, but you have to wait a little bit longer for the real top. And it's not like we get the big corrections that we often do see in like the Hound right here. Look at that correction back from that spike. That's just another trade opportunity for you to try and take advantage if you're feeling risky. In the Vengeance, nope, you had no buy opportunities between the bottom that was before January at the end of December and the sell opportunity that happened now. So that's why I'm not really liking the assault frigates, but I'm keeping an eye on this one. If the Vengeance start to show some interesting patterns, I may pick up some other assault frigates as well to check out. But at the moment I'm saying no. One spike in 6 months, compare that to the Purifier 1-2 double spike right here. Slight opportunity here as well. Look where it comes from. That's definitely completely different. If you look at the Basilisk right here, obviously there were some opportunities here early on 6 months ago. Then we had that stable period, but we reached a real bottom, and now you do have 2 spikes in the works already in less than 2 months. That's what I prefer to see compared to the Vengeance chart, which really only showed one concrete opportunity. Before this, we actually had, I think, more stability. Let's take a quick look here at the 1 year chart here. It was very difficult to time any of this as well, I think. So interesting here, a bottom below 16 million. That's pretty obvious opportunity. If you see here, if you can actually buy Vengeances below 18 million, you're bound to do a good deal. But I just don't really feel like it's that great to be trading in these at the moment. Next up, Tech 3 market, 37 minutes. All right, let's keep going here. Here's the Confessor. My read on the Tech 3 market, I was starting to see more and more of these ships being well supplied on the market, and thus I'm thinking we could get more stability here. And the Confessor, it's trying to do that, right? A bit more stable below 60 million. And we still have, yeah, not bad. Half a front page, 26, 10, 10, 20 here coming in. So not bad, decent supply at stable price below 60 million. Let's see what the Hecate is doing. Yep, trying to find a price above 55 million. What's the supply looking like? Again, not too bad. Yeah, more than half a front page of new ones, including 15, 20, 27, stuff like that. So there are decent Hecates, despite the fact that the price is, well, stabilizing at 55 to 60 million. Next up here, we've got the Jackdaw. Still a little bit of volatility. I think the Jackdaw, there were not that many available, and this one was at risk last week for this increase in price. Pretty surprised to see that we went from 54 to 60 million, but we're already going back down. So did big supply come in? Let's take a look. Obviously it did. Look at that. All of this is less than a day old, still less than a day old. 76 right here, 18 right here. And we have to, yeah, almost 2 pages less than a day old, and 22 as the latest one at 57 million, showing great volumes, great availability. Let's hope indeed for some more stability. And then finally we have this Vipul for the destroyers, also going down to 54 million, staying pretty stable. And Yeah, less than a day old. Look at that, almost more than a front page again with 30, 52, 45, 27. What could be happening is that people may start to think that a nerf could be incoming for some of these, because the Zweepel and the Confessor are considered to be slightly OP at the moment. So it is possible that for that reason people are actually dumping some of their stocks to make sure that they're not holding too many of these ships when they get nerfed, and they might decrease in price. That's possible. Could also be that some stability in wormhole space, we've not really heard a lot about major wars there, has increased production, and thus we are now seeing them bringing all of these ships back to the market at a much higher clip, and thus more stability. Let's see what the cruisers are doing. Here's the Legion, also going down 180 million, trying to stabilize at this price point. Yeah, almost a full page of new ones, including 28 new Legions. So just consider for a moment all of the production, all of the supply that's coming in less than 24 hours across all of the ships so far. That's something that we have not seen in the last few months here, when we had a lot of instability in a lot of these ships. Same here with Confessor. Just look at this. When we were increasing in price here, increasing in price here, here again, it was just the supply here was almost nothing compared to what we're seeing here. Very interesting. Here's the Loki chart, went as low as 170, worked its way back up a little bit. Let's see what the availability is. Yeah, a little bit less. We're not seeing Lokis come to the market here. They're trading at 178, but the good news is there are still sell orders, older sell orders with 20, 18, 12, 10, 66 Lokis that are on the market, and that will keep the price normally from going too crazy too quickly. And so the Loki is the first one here where we're not seeing big supply coming in the last 24 hours. It is also a cruiser below 180 million. Next up, let's take a look at the Proteus here. Went down to 180, up just a little bit. Let's see if supply is here. It's starting to come. 194, slightly higher price, a little bit of supply coming in. But again, you do see the availability of the Proteus across all price ranges here. So it's gonna be very hard to do to the Proteus at the moment what happened right here. A jump up from 170 to 240, a jump up from 140 to 220 is gonna be very hard to do with the sell orders that we're seeing here of the Proteus. And so if supply starts to come in here again, which it seems to do if you look at some of the latest orders here, then yeah, the Proteus could start to go back down, stabilize probably in the 180 to 190 price range. And then finally we've got the Tengu, some pressure on the Tengu going to 180 million. Let's see what that says. Not that many, but a day ago, look at that, 88 days here, availability, decent supply coming in, and then less than a day old, 310, 333, still some supply. So at the moment, I would say that there is a lot of destroyers that came in the last few days. That's pretty interesting. And availability across the board, if you look at the browsable tab here, is not bad. The Loki probably the least likely. It's also pretty low in price at the moment for a cruiser as well. The lowest in price. Well, Legion 178, proving me wrong right here. Big supply at these prices, that's a little bit unusual. But yeah, a lot more ships coming on the market every 24 hours than what we saw when we had all the volatility. So in my book, there is a good chance that we will see more stability in the Tech 3 market here. And then for my extra product for the 3 minutes, I chose the Marauders, and I'll also quickly check on the Gecko, because that could be interesting with all of the carrier news that's been happening. So let's take a look at the Marauder, just a personal interest. The theory could be that with the announcement that, of course, carrier AFK ratting with drones could be over, Marauders could be interesting. So I want to see if they showed volatility, because it is a Tech 2 ship, and if it is at a high point. So let's take a look here. Marauders, Amar. This is the Paladin chart. Wow, that's interesting. Volatility and at a high point for 6 months. Currently selling for 1.2 billion, buyers 1 billion. Pretty wide margin here. That's definitely a pretty wide margin. And that big price spike here on the volume spike, definitely a possibility. I think that few alliances or an alliance that rats a lot decided, you know what, if the carriers are dying, we should start buying marauders to have an alternative for effective ratting in nullsec. Here's the golem chart, also at a 6-month high. Pretty interesting, 1.25 billion for a golem. Again, increased volume right here could definitely be related to the carrier changes. It's interesting. I'm rarely on the money on this, but the paladin with lasers, really good PvE ship. The golem with missiles, also very good PvE. The Chronos probably not that great because it is probably a blaster ship. You have to go in there, not something that you can use in a similar fashion to a carrier. The paladin and the golem, you can use that to rat effectively just sitting there. And so I think this is maybe why the Chronos is not in the exact same situation, but it came off a spike of 135 billion, then went up to 125 almost, now going back down a little bit, but settling at 1.15 billion, which, considering where we were 6 months ago, is quite a bit higher as well. We're just not clearly seeing the increased volume. Look at the golem here, you can clearly see a big increase in volume. Compare that to the Chronos, yeah, not that completely special right here. And then finally we've got the Varger, yeah, obviously as well, increase in volume, high point for 6 months at 1.2 billion ISK, and we're coming from 0.95. That's definitely a pretty big premium, and the first one to really show some volatility here with buy and sell orders. But across the board, I don't think that there is actually enough volatility to say, or volumes to say, that you should actively trade in the marauders. They're just too expensive, I think, to really actively do that. But pretty interesting, almost all of them at high points for 6 months. Pretty expensive at the moment to buy a marauder, and I'm reading this as a reaction to the carrier changes, in my opinion. Really, really cool stuff. I'm not often right when I choose something myself and go for a bit of a story. You know, I'm expecting that but here I do think I'm right on the money. And then finally, I'll quickly check on the gecko. A lot of people are interested in this because it is something that is not being produced anymore in New Eden. And oh my god, at a 6-month low, we're actually buying geckos for 65 million ISK at the moment, almost 65.6. Sellers, buyers at 62.6. And yeah, a 6-month low. This is of course also the carrier changes that are being impacted here. The fact that carriers could rat very effectively with a lot more geckos than any battleship or non-capital ship can, made it of course a very popular drone amongst the carrier players. If carriers can no longer use drones, then the gecko usage and loss is also going to go quite down substantially. But it's one thing to keep in mind, we're not producing geckos anymore. CCP's probably, let's just take the crystal ball here and hope that CCP doesn't come out with new geckos anytime soon. Then this could be an interesting investment, considering where the chart is at the moment. So yeah, not what I expected. I did not expect the gecko to actually be at a 6-month low at the moment. Anyways, that's it for this Eve Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.